Hey, we want to welcome everybody to another episode of You and the Law podcast show. We got on another, a guest who is no stranger to the podcast show. We got on Pastor Jesse Jackson with East 6th Street Christian Church in Oklahoma City. Pastor Jackson, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for inviting me. God bless you, brother.
Yeah, we had you on a couple weeks ago, and I told you I wanted to get you back on to talk about something that has been in the news a lot
Yes, sir.
for several decades in Oklahoma County and Oklahoma City. And Pastor, it's sad that we're having this conversation about people that are arrested for crimes that they have committed in the city, but you should not have to go to jail to die.
No,
And so we're gonna get into this conversation about the crises at the Oklahoma County Jail, and I've got a couple of video clips that I want to play throughout the show. But Pastor, for those who don't know you, let everybody know who you are, how long you've been in Oklahoma City, what you do in Oklahoma City, and how engaged you are with the community in Oklahoma City and the faith-based community.
okay. Thank you. My name is Jesse Jackson Jr. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. Started school at Jackson State University and then finished at Murray State University in Kentucky. I came to Oklahoma City in January of 1990 to be a program director with the YMCA. So I dropped in the heart of the African American community here in Northeast Oklahoma City. And now that I'm a pastor here, and I've been at East 6th Street for 26 years. So I spent my time in Oklahoma amongst the people of Northeast Oklahoma City. And I've advocated for them because I had to advocate for myself to protect the people down here where our church, because we were victims of gentrification, victims of zoning laws. And so we just fought for basic rights here. And then, I've done it nationally and even internationally. We've been down to the border in Arizona, looking at immigration law. We've been to Palestine, looking at the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We've been to Ghana and West Africa. And so we just advocate. We've been in Congress. And so we just do what we do at home and abroad.
Well, it is good, Pastor. I mean, like you stated, for so many years you have been engaged with the not just within Oklahoma City, but as you stated, around pretty much around the world.
Yes.
And and I think this situation in Oklahoma City with the jail um, has been in the news a lot and locally. And I don't, Pastor, for Oklahoma County Jail to be the second highest mortality rate in the United States, West Virginia it ranks number one when it
Mhm.
comes to inmate death. Why hasn't this gotten the national exposure? Because people that have died at the jail have pretty much have been all minorities,
Yes.
all pretty much all males, uh,
Yes.
come from a background of either crime or just the poverty level. But hasn't been something that has risen to a national level, and even on a state level. Every time there's a death at the jail, you have the local news media cover it. And I think as of this month, there's 14 people have been killed in the
Yes.
Oklahoma County Detention Center. So
Yes.
why do you think that this has not gotten the attention that it should be receiving?
I think it's politics, and the other side is controlling the narrative on this thing.
Yeah,
So, I mean, where is the presumption of innocence? Just because you're arrested does not mean you're actually guilty. Now, I'm not saying if everybody down there is not guilty, because there's a whole bunch of guilty folk down there. But I'm saying you still have certain rights when you're arrested.
you do.
And just because you're arrested for a crime, everything doesn't turn into a death sentence.
Yeah,
So the jail was poorly designed. It's poorly run. Gentleman that died last year, an officer, a CO, has just been arrested for falsifying his logs because he all of a sudden began to say he did site checks, but he didn't do any site checks.
Correct.
And I did the homegoing celebration of the 13th victim, John Basco, down there. And I read an article just today in our state newspaper, the Oklahoma, from last year. And it talked about the hostage situation that they had and the killing of that inmate. It talked about failure to do site checks. It talked about the food, the infrastructure that is poorly built and maintained. And the thing that got me is that this thing was built for 1,200 people. And as of last year, they had 2,500 folks in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's ridiculous. And these people control the narrative, and we have a narrative of lock them up and throw away the key. It's not a narrative of a presumption of innocence until guilt, or a presumption of just justice. And we act as though that people that have been arrested and accused of something all of a sudden have lost all of their rights as a human being. And that's not the truth. That's not the truth. And so we have people that are not being treated like people treat their pets. And
well,
quite honestly,
pets get treated better.
a heck of a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the sanitation down there, when people get showers, maybe once or twice a week. I know as of last year, the bedding, which is supposed to be changed once a week, was changed about once every 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And if these people are not getting showers, if they're rarely getting out of their cell to get some movement and some exercise or something, to see some daylight or something, you have all of this built up. And we already know that the Department of Correction is the #1 substance abuse facility in Oklahoma. And I would say the same thing for mental health, since we cut down on all the other facilities.
Yes, sir.
And so you have people there that desperately need medical, mental, and substance abuse help. That would help alleviate the issue there, because some folks were just diagnosed with the right thing and on their medicine, they could actually function in society.
They can.
But you know, you got all this there, and then just the filth that you make people live in is infested with vermin, particularly bed bugs and lice.
Yeah.
The food is absolutely horrible. Again, you wouldn't feed that to your pet. Yeah. And you have humans down there, and then when somebody acts out down there, you want to know why they're acting like an animal. Well, how are you treating them?
Yeah.
How are you treating them? And the only people that seem to care are folk that have family members that are incarcerated down there.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, Pastor, that's the thing. You know, you talked about, you know, people commit crimes, but people are still human. And no matter what crime you commit, you are still a human being. You know, somebody can see a stray dog running around and they'll call animal control, and animal control will pick up that stray dog, and they will take that stray dog to the animal shelter, and they will take care of that stray dog. They will feed that stray dog. They will provide medical care for that stray dog. They will put that stray dog up for adoption unless the owner comes and claims ownership of the stray dog. So this stray dog is treated a whole lot better than somebody who may have been pulled over by one of the surrounding agencies in the Oklahoma City metro area for, let's just say, an outstanding warrant. Mm-hmm. Now this person finds themselves going to jail. They're not going to be treated like the stray dog at the Oklahoma County detention
animal
center.
Shelter. Yeah.
Animal shelter. Yeah. So, you know, you got to ask yourself, what's wrong with in every county jail isn't like this. I mean, you know, you look at
No.
how Cleveland County runs their jail, which is a smaller jail. You look at how Pottawatomie County runs their jail; it's a smaller jail. There's Oklahoma County Jail, which is probably the second largest jail in the state of Oklahoma. They don't have the deaths in the treatment of their inmates up in Tulsa County as what is going on in Oklahoma County. So again, you go to jail, you're supposed to be able to go to jail, post bond, and get out. There's a lot of people, and as you'll see in some of these clips we'll play, they went to jail and they ended up leaving out on a stretcher, and
Yeah.
and their family members had to bury them.
Yes. Now, you know, Chief, my wife retired from the Oklahoma Department of Corrections, and she would encounter inmates who were begging to go to prison because they just couldn't stand it in Oklahoma County Jail. They were begging to go to prison.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Pastor, and this is another thing. There's money involved with this because, as you know, you've been around in your community activism. You know that the state pays the county for those inmates who have already been deemed by the courts to be sentenced over to Department of Corrections. So the state will pay the county to house that person for a year, sometimes maybe 2 years, sometimes maybe 3 years. So the county is getting money out of it. So this is another question. Why is there a system in place that says, hey, the state is going to pay the county, so we want to make sure you guys get money. So we'll keep 100 or 200 inmates in the county jail, and we'll pay the counties versus those inmates who have been found guilty and should be turned over to the Department of Corrections and sent to a prison. Because once you get to prison, you're not going to die inside of an Oklahoma County. I mean, you're not going to die inside of a Oklahoma prison cell, because Oklahoma prisons are not, I don't even believe they're in the top 10 when it comes to mortality death rates.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I always say we got to follow the money. And I think it starts at the state capitol.
Yeah.
And, you know, they have so cut funding for everything that, again, people trying to raise revenue, they have added criminal, they've added things to the docket that would normally be a slap on the wrist or go home.
Yeah.
And now people are getting locked up for it because they mean money. So once again, we're trafficking in human bodies, particularly Black and brown bodies. And of course, Oklahoma was once king of private prisons. And so with you locking up so many municipal people down there, and you know, with the idea of private prison and the guarantees that they have from the legislature. And I think that's where it starts, because when you cut all this funding and they have to do things to raise money, these people don't care what they have to do. And the fact that there's just a callousness about the politics in our country now, and where, you know, human beings are not thought of as human beings, we're thought of as political capital.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can live or die with political capital.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Pastor Jackson, my co-host keeps popping in and out, so you know we need to welcome the man of the hour, who goes by the name that's known all over podcast land and all over Arkansas, Oklahoma, as Chief Swaggy One.
Man,
how was that? How was that intro, brother?
Man, it was good. Man.
Yeah, we got some breakup on your end. Well, Pastor Jackson, while he works out his technical problems, we'll get him back on.
All right.
But so, Pastor, I'm gonna play a video and a news clipping, a news article from local news here in Oklahoma City about the crisis at the Oklahoma County Detention Center.
Okay.
Another Oklahoma County jail death reported over the weekend. That makes 14 deaths reported this year alone.
KOCO's Evan Onstott joining us here in studio. Evan, I know you've been looking into this, and we're learning more about this inmate who passed away.
John Basco was certainly known at the Oklahoma County Jail. He was suing.
Evan, I don't think we have your microphone.
Is it not turned up right now?
Here we go. Now we got it.
All right, great. He was suing John Basco, I'll just repeat what I said. He was known at the Oklahoma County Jail because he was suing the county over allegations of torture during a previous stay in 2019. That is when he and others say that they were handcuffed in a room and forced to listen to the song Baby Shark for hours on repeat. He was also a witness in a criminal case against 3 former detention officers accused in this. Basco was booked back into the jail on September 8th. He died there yesterday on the 11th, 3 days later. The jail says Basco was found unresponsive in his cell around 4 a.m. and pronounced dead later in the morning. The cause of death is unknown. There are no signs of foul play, according to a jail spokesperson, and the OSBI will now help in this investigation. Now, I've also been speaking with Basco's attorney, Cameron Spradling, who says Basco looked clear-eyed in his booking photo recently. He says he's disturbed by the timing of his client's passing. Now, I have asked if Basco's death will impact the criminal trial or the lawsuit. Those answers tonight, guys, not clear. We'll be following it. Back to you.
You know, Pastor Jackson, that is, you know, you referenced this person earlier in the podcast show that I believe you did his homegoing at your church, because he is also, his sister was killed last year while Oklahoma City Police was chasing a guy in a stolen pickup truck in Northeast Oklahoma City. So you got a family that is still dealing with the death of a daughter. She was a mother. Now they're dealing with the death of another.
Chief Green, your mic is low. Your volume is low.
Oh, is it? Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh,
You're better
what
now.
about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, let me repeat what I was saying, that, you know, this person, I believe you did their homegoing at your
Yes.
church.
Yes.
His sister was killed in a police pursuit last
Yeah.
year in Northeast Oklahoma City. And
I did
now,
hers too.
yeah, you did hers too as well. And now here the family is dealing with another tragic death. And so again, there are so many questions around this. And even in my position that I have, you got, as a Black man and as somebody in law enforcement, you got to question, here's a person that's well known within the county jail. You know that this man has an active lawsuit against the jail and the former detention officers that worked there. And all of a sudden, I don't even believe he was in jail more than a week.
No, it was a weekend. It was over weekend.
It was over the weekend. So he got booked in, and then over the weekend, he dies in the jail.
Chief, I'm telling you, even if for no other reason, somebody should say, you know, this dude has a suit going against us. If anything happens to him, it's going to really look bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need to make sure that we, you know, make sure he's separated from everybody, and that, you know, nothing crazy happens to him, because that's going to bolster that suit.
Yeah.
And you know, you do whatever you do, and whatever was going on with him, and the next thing you know, he turns up dead. And that's just a slap in the face again to everybody else. And Chief, like the National Institute of Corrections recommending a plan of improvement for the jail. They
Correct.
didn't do anything. They didn't do it. It said that the sanitation was disturbing. Again, I still don't think you can treat humans like that. So they flunked the inspection in June, and then they came back and did a surprise one in October of last year, and they said y'all hadn't made any improvement, even after we put y'all on an improvement plan. Y'all hadn't done anything differently.
Yeah.
And so it seems to be an unwillingness of all those associated with the jail, and you know, you always hate to paint with a broad brush, but I hadn't seen anybody step up. And
Well,
that is from the sheriff on down to the CO.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Pastor, one of the things that the Oklahoma County Detention Center came under the umbrella of the Jail Trust Authority.
Mhm.
Everything was supposed to change under this Jail Trust Authority, but that has not changed at all.
No,
So,
I think
you
it
know,
just added another layer of bureaucracy, really.
it did. It really did. You added another layer of somebody who's supposed to be an oversight of the county jail. But once again, they took it from the sheriff department because under the previous administration, under Sheriff John Wetzel, there was the jail. And again, we got to acknowledge the jail was built poorly. But even if a jail is built poorly, you should not have inmates people who have been arrested, who have not been actually convicted of the crimes that they have been arrested for, die inside of a county jail. You should not have to have that.
That's right.
Yeah. So the whole question about, the jail trust is going to oversight and operate the jail better than the sheriff department. Actually, there's been more death under the jail trust than it has been when it was under the operations of the county sheriff.
Because they don't know anything about corrections, about law enforcement. I don't believe they have anybody on their jail trust that knows anything about policing, anything about prisons, or anything about incarcerating anybody on any level. And I think that's problematic. And you're right, it has increased, and I think they've taken a bad situation and made it worse.
Yeah. Yeah, and Pastor, one of the things, because you know, I ran for Oklahoma County Sheriff in 2017, a special election, and it was a hot topic then, and that was right when the county commissioners was really considering this jail trust, and then all of a sudden, you know, you had millionaires who were very involved. You had the Oklahoma Chamber who was involved with it as well. So you had a lot of people that had money involved with this jail trust, and this is how this jail trust was created. But so they bring in somebody who came from the Department of Corrections to be the administrator of the Oklahoma County Jail. Well, then fast forward, when I ran for sheriff again in 2020, you were still having the same problems, but everybody was saying, hey, we need to build a new jail. Building a new jail is not going to solve the problem. It's just going to be a better building, but you got to start with the people that you are hiring to work in these jails, and then the leadership, those who are running the jail. And Pastor, as you know this, nobody has been on a administrative level. Nobody has been held accountable. Nobody has lost their job. Nobody has resigned, but with all of these people that have died inside of this jail.
No. You have a few COs that have been convicted of bringing contraband in the case of John Basco, assisted in what has been termed torture. These guys are 19, 20, 21 years old, man.
Yeah.
And inadequately trained, undertrained, mistrained, chronically underpaid.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, these are folks that would be working at McDonald's, you know, the next week, and now they're in charge of somebody's lives.
Yeah.
Without having been trained how to do this kind of work.
Exactly.
And it's really kind of unfair for them. And I know people are looking for a job and things of that nature, but you know, just because you looking for a job don't mean that that is the one that you need to get.
Correct. Chief Swag, how you doing, brother?
What's going on, man? What's going on, man? Sigma?
How are you doing, brother? I like that blue hat.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, man. You don't have a cat head, man.
Hey, Pastor. You know, he told me I needed to step my game up. So I guess we're gonna have to, you know, I'm gonna have to outdo him, because when it comes to the sock game, I already got him. So I need to get in the hat game.
Well, Pastor, I've been listening. Sorry to everybody for being late. I had to something came up, but I will say this, man. We have this problem all over the nation when it comes to the county jails. You're absolutely right.
Not like how Oklahoma County.
Well, I mean, you do have some jails that have had their problems, but I will give you that. I know that both of you all are well versed in the history of that of Oklahoma County. But I'll tell you, man, it is. I truly believe in some of these incidents, or some of these instances. I believe that there is a belief that it goes back to debtors' prisons. You know, the history of confinement or detention. I think it goes back to some of the debtors' prisons that you get bare minimum. You know, I mean, you basically, you know, I think it's that mindset. It's okay to feed somebody bologna sandwiches, and for people to call and you know, okay, because they're criminals. I believe some of that mindset occurs, and I think that we've done it. Like you said, you hire cheap labor, and a lot of these kids who are, and I call them kids, a lot of the detention officers are kids. It's their first job. You're being hired to be responsible for the well-being of someone. These kids can be easily persuaded. Some of these kids don't have the maturity to take care of. Some of them don't have the maturity to take care of themselves, and now you put them in a position to take care of individuals that have allegedly committed crimes. Yeah. And so I think Oklahoma County Jail, I think the entire jail, just the whole system there, needs to be purged and start from the beginning. I agree with you. The trust, I believe, was a smoke and mirror, because now what you said is we're going to put this committee, or we're going to put this step in there that provides more oversight. But when you have the same problem happening over again, then it's time to do an audit of what is the purpose of the trust, and you know, what's going on, you know, what's happening, you know, what is happening. And a lot of people don't realize that that people are not guilty until proven so. And so if you're going to take responsibility for these individuals, you have to treat them. You have to treat them with some humanity. And so there is a problem. I totally agree with you. There is a problem. And we had an incident when I was in Norman that happened at Clark County Jail, where there was a gentleman that went in, and you know, you have a problem also, guys, to where people believe that if someone that's in the jail says they're not feeling well, they're not being honest. Correct. So sometimes they don't take the complaints of the inmates seriously, which, you know, there's a process. If somebody says they're not, you don't have the right to say, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. And let's just be for real. Some of the nurses that have there, some of the medical team that have there, they don't care. And so, yeah, I do think that prisoners sometimes get subpar treatment.
Yeah,
I truly believe.
And all sicknesses can't be determined by the naked eye. You know, I'm a diabetic and I got high blood pressure. You know, you can't readily see that. It's not an open wound, but that stuff will kill you dead faster than anything else.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
Pam Humphrey asked a question: is the jail managed by the same company or people who manage the prisons in Oklahoma? So the county and state jails are not proprietary institutions. They are managed by the county. So the sheriff really is supposed to be over detention for the county, and the jails are state facilities. There are proprietary prisons that are owned by a couple of companies throughout the United States, but the county jail is not a. They're two different entities. One's county and then you have federal.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, and you know, for many decades, the Oklahoma County Jail was operated by the sheriff department, and then when all of the deaths started to occur, then you had a lot of people who really didn't know anything about law enforcement decided that they were going to create this jail trust, and this jail trust was going to take over the day-to-day operations of the jail. And one of the things that when I was running for sheriff, I basically said it was a bad idea. You know, you need to allow the sheriff department to run the jail, because now you are putting you're putting money in the middle of a problem, and you've got certain and Pastor, you know this. When you put people who have influence in the middle of something,
Mhm.
on the other side of that, somebody is looking for a payday that's eventually going to happen.
That's right.
So, so there, yeah,
It's
go ahead.
always follow the money, Chief.
Yeah,
Always.
I would, yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And
I'm telling you it is. I'm telling you that there are those. That, I mean, when it comes to money, as far as city and state government and county government, you're gonna always find places to cut, and so sometimes areas that they feel is not a priority is gonna lose the funding.
yeah,
And they already contracted medical and the telephone down there. The telephone, I
yeah.
understand, is big business. It's big business
It-
in prison.
Well, yeah, and so the thing at the county jail with the commissary and with the jail, I think that's what got the former sheriff and some other people uh, where they came under some investigation by the Oklahoma County district attorney
Mhm.
because of some other things that were going on related to, you know, inmates having to buy cell phone cards, the commissary. And
Mhm.
so, you know, it has just been a jail that has been mismanaged for a long time. But, and I'm going to say this, Pastor, because I want to, you know, take up too much of your time, because you have been involved with this for a lot of years, you and so many other people. But the you got the city of Oklahoma City, as everybody knows, is growing. And so you don't want, when you've got a downtown district that is really changing, you got all these things going on with the MAPS project, you got a brand new convention center, you got a brand new downtown Scissortail Park, you got all these things going on. The last thing you want to see in the news every single week is the death of an inmate. So
Yeah.
if you can try to control that and put people in there who can control it, that's going to make Oklahoma City be more viable to big conferences and all these other things that people want to come to Oklahoma City to enjoy. But when you got a problem with your jail, you don't want that kind of message getting out around the state of Oklahoma and even around the country.
No. But I tell you, the overall, um, I won't even call it conservative. I don't mind conservative. I mean, that's a political thing. But these folk are extreme. And that extreme behavior that throws people away and treats people as less than. A lot of that comes from people, quite frankly, and this is the urban rural thing that comes in. These guys that come from the boondocks, they're not in the cities. They're not used to dealing with people that do not look like them, and so they're easier to throw away. and they are getting the extreme and harsh measures, and it's happening budgetary wise, and that really ties the hands of the sheriff, that ties the hands of everybody working with a budget in corrections when you do that. And I mean, you asking people to make bricks without straw.
Yeah, exactly.
It-
Hey guys, I've got to go
Yeah,
ahead, Keith.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I've got another clip that I want to play that's going to also touch on the community involvement, the community activism that's involved with trying to change some things at the Oklahoma County Detention Center.
The People's Council for Justice Reform has been vocal about their opinion on the county jail for a while now, even placing these 14 flags outside of Midwest City Hall, representing the 14 lives that have been taken in the jail just this year. But this isn't their only protest they're having just to get cities to terminate their contracts with the jail. The People's Council for Justice Reform, alongside members of the NAACP, are calling on Midwest City, Edmond, and Oklahoma City to sever ties with the Criminal Justice Authority. The three municipalities have contracts with CJAC as well as the county jail. Midwest City's professional service agreement expired last month, and the interlocal between the three municipalities expires in October. The group, calling on the jail for their alleged inhumane conditions, say they don't want to continue funding CJAC because they haven't kept up their half of the agreement by keeping inmates safe. The agreement, put in place in 2017, says it can be terminated at any time by 2/3 vote of city council members. The Criminal Justice Advisory Council tells me in part, quote, "We value each of our community partners and have had tremendous contributions from Midwest City. We value their partnership and look forward to many future years of shared collaboration and productivity. There are numerous organizations CJAC works with, all the common goal of a more fair and effective justice system for the residents of Oklahoma County. We intend to continue that important mission." The activists say an alternative for not renewing the contracts could be for their citizens to be housed in other counties, like Cleveland or Comanche County. And Sarah Bana, a council member for Midwest City, says she's taking a stand as a concerned citizen of Midwest City, but she says the topic is likely to be brought up and voted on at their next city council meeting on September 27th.
Do the right thing. Sever your ties with the jail trust.
As a citizen, as a humanitarian, as a civil and human rights advocate, the city of Midwest City, the city of Oklahoma City, and the city of Edmond do not need to reconsider renewing the CJAC professional service agreement or the interlocal agreement.
And the city of Midwest City tells me in a statement they recognize Council Member Bana's First Amendment rights to express her opinion on issues in the community, but they don't reflect the City Council of Midwest City, and they have no further comment on the demonstration today. In Midwest City, Megan Mosley, KOCO 5 News.
Hey, Pastor, Sarah Banner is no stranger to you, and she is always out in the community trying to make sure that those who don't have a voice have a voice.
Well, Chief, I tell you, I plan to work with Sarah and Mark and Sean Cummings and anyone, actually, NAACP and any other organization here to try and bring some federal oversight to this jail. I think it's going to take the muscle of the federal government to move some folks here in Oklahoma, because they're not going to move otherwise. They're not going to be moved by compassion. They're not going to be moved by fairness or by justice. And sometimes you have to make folks do something.
Yeah.
That's the only way. That's the only way that the South was desegregated. They were made to do it.
Yeah.
That's the only way after the Civil War that people were able to exercise their 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment rights, because you had soldiers there to make folks do it.
Yeah.
And this is why everybody's so busy trying to dismantle the Voting Rights Act now, because they can go back to doing whatever they were doing. And this This is costing lives. This is deadly. And I don't know why some folks won't acknowledge that. I just think it's just an inhumanity that people have that automatically throws people away whenever they are arrested, regardless of whether or not they have, committed that crime. I mean, they may have, but let's go to trial.
Exactly.
And I watch Westerns and I laugh every time I hear that old line when the posse tries to get a criminal to give up. Say, man, we'll give you a fair trial before we hang you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
No, it's man, you hit home, man. I always go back to humanity. I always go back. Whatever, as a police officer, we're taught that you never allow a jury to make a decision. But I tell you, in the situation we're talking about, I totally believe that. And I can tell you this: if I had a jail, as police chief, if I was over a jail, and I guarantee you, if I had that many people, I wouldn't even have to have. If I had 3 or 4 people, 1 or 2, it would be a call for my termination.
Mm-hmm.
It would be something that's not going on. Something's not going on, but something's going on wrong in the jail. The chief needs to be fired, needs to be held accountable. And so my thing is, man, you gotta look at this. Some of these incidents are similar in nature. What is going on? I mean, why do you have 14 individuals that have passed? If it comes down to medical issues, well, why weren't they getting the proper medical treatment? If it comes down to it's an environmental thing in the jail, then okay, what are we going to do about it? If it comes down to it's an excessive force issue, then what are we going to do about it? But there has to be some common factors in these deaths, some way, somehow. There has to be common factors that need to be addressed.
I don't know if anybody put any pressure on the sheriff. I mean, I think again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that this is a systemic failure from the top to the bottom.
Well,
yeah.
But just as you said, Chief,
yeah.
I mean, if it had been 1 or 2, they'd been coming after your head.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody has said anything to the sheriff. I mean,
well, and I'll say this, and I think back before the jail trust was formed, the Oklahoma County Sheriff under former Sheriff Wetzel was under a lot of heat. P.D. Taylor, who later became the sheriff when Sheriff Wetzel retired, he was the jail administrator. So you had 2 individuals who ran the Oklahoma County jail, ran the Oklahoma County Sheriff Department for over 20-something years. And in those 20-something years, nothing improved. Everything just continued to deteriorate. And another part of this conversation, Pastor Jackson, is that when you're in law enforcement and you speak out against things that involve law enforcement, now to everybody else, you're not one of us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to stand up for what is right. And that was one of my main things when I ran for sheriff, was that you got to stand up for what's right. You got to call out bad behaviors. You got to, if it's not right, it's just not right. Don't try to be on the side and say, well, you know what, I'm trying to get elected. It's not about politics. It's about people's lives, because I'm going to go back and say, you can go to any animal shelter in Oklahoma, period. Dogs get treated better than inmates at the Oklahoma County Jail.
Yes.
People will say, well, they shouldn't have committed the crime. Well, I'm going to give you an example. You get somebody who goes out on a Friday night and they got off of work, they went to Bricktown, and they got pulled over for a DUI. Now, that person may make a 6-figure salary. Now, they may not be able to get out of jail, but all of a sudden now, is that person going to get treated the same as somebody from Northeast Oklahoma City? Or is that person going to get arrested, for a DUI, but him or her, they're out of jail within hours. People are not afforded the same opportunities as everybody else.
Yeah.
You know
And
what?
we've all been. Go ahead, Chief. I'm sorry.
You know, I think we need to get Mike Norris on this show one time because, you know, he's saying the current sheriff has zero to do with the jail. It's all on the backs of the jail trust.
But he's right. He's right, Keith. It is. It's all everything that happened with the jail that since 2020 is on the backs of the jail trust. The sheriff department has no oversight of it whatsoever.
Okay,
it
but
was taken away from the sheriff.
Do you not think as the sheriff, do you not think as a police chief, you need to answer questions because you're prisoners that are dying? So do you not think?
Well, I'm gonna say this, Keith. The jail trust. So the sheriff sits on the jail trust board.
Okay.
But he sits on the board. But at the end of the day, this comes back on the hands of that jail trust and that jail trust board.
Are you telling me that the sheriff has no reason to express his concerns about
he has a reason to express his.
How many times have you heard a sheriff, express their concerns? The sheriff, P.D. Taylor, Tommy Johnson. How many times have you heard them express their concern?
Zero.
Okay, that in itself right there. You telling me how many times have you heard the Oklahoma City police chief express it?
Zero.
Brother, do y'all remember Willie Tyler and Lester?
Yeah.
The man with the dummy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dummy can't talk if Willie Tyler's left.
Right. So right. And so my thing is, I get what Norris is saying, that he doesn't have, he has a voice. And the chief of Oklahoma City has a voice. And the chief of Dale City has a voice. And the chief of all the departments that Oklahoma County Jail Services have a voice. We are concerned. We're coming to you collectively. I guarantee you this: if they had a communications and these type of things were happening, and if they had a communication center and people were walking off, if they had a communication center and there were people not getting the service, I guarantee you those chiefs and the sheriff would be raising their voices then. So why are you not raising your voice or your concern when you have individuals who are dying, prisoners that you are bringing in and they're being transferred? So they do have a voice. They should express a concern. I don't buy that.
Well, again, I think it's coming down to you're not using your voice. You're not using your voice. And I'm gonna say this because, and Pastor Jackson, you know this. You got other people in the Black community who they'll jump on the bandwagon on every single thing else, everything else. But this has not been a top priority for some in the Black community to stay on top of this and stay on top of it and put the pressure, because at election time, everybody wants to go to the Black churches and get support. Now, I'm going to say something because some people will listen to this show now and they'll listen to it later. But you got a person who is running, who is a Oklahoma County commissioner, who is running for DA. This man ain't never stepped foot in Northeast Oklahoma City and cared about anybody in the Black community. But all of a sudden now, since he's running for Oklahoma County District Attorney, he wants to go to the Black churches and meet the Black pastors. And then all of a sudden the Black pastors want to sit down and meet with this man. This man didn't have anything to do with you before, but all of a sudden now you want to sit there and listen to what he got to say. Why should you listen to what he got to say when before he is over every single death that has happened at that county jail?
And he's not going to see you. He's not going to see you after the election either.
No, right. He won't see you after the election.
And another important part that we're missing on this, man, each of those agencies pay a certain amount for each prisoner, and each day those prisoners that they bring stay. So each of those cities have a vested interest in that. So yes, they have a vested interest because they pay. They pay a pretty penny.
Yeah.
for jail to house the prisoners.
Yeah. So guess what happened? Midwest City has agreed not to send their inmates to Oklahoma County Jail. So Midwest City has their own municipal city jail. So their Midwest City now is not going to send their inmates to the jail. They're going to either send them to Cleveland County or to another jail. There's a smaller agency that's on the northeast side of Oklahoma City that is Harrah Police Department. They transport their people to another county, which is over in Pottawatomie County. They're a little bit, their situation, because they're more closer to Shawnee than they're closer to Oklahoma, downtown Oklahoma City. But if this, and I said this many years ago, if you stop taking people to the Oklahoma County Jail, you're going to cut into that revenue. Now you're going to make some people think they're going to be saying, "Hey, we need to get our act together," because again, it shouldn't be about generating revenue. It should be about the care and the safety of people once they come inside of those doors, to make sure that that person leaves out of the doors, not in the back of an ambulance.
Well, I would,
but Chief, like I said, I told you, some of these guys that are doing the budgets and making the laws, they come from Podok, Oklahoma, and the people that are being affected, the folk that are dying in Oklahoma County Jail, don't look like them, and they are not their constituents. They don't care what happened to other folks as long as it don't happen to them.
Yeah,
and so, you know, look, you got to make bricks without straw. We're gonna take this money, but we don't like corrections anyway. It's like my man out in Arizona in Maricopa County.
Yeah,
the things that he did for years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so it's that same kind of thing. They think that low of prisoners and don't care anything. That's why the sanitation is deplorable.
Yeah.
That's why, and it's worse for women.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You got women who can't even get female hygiene products.
Yeah.
Now see that in itself right there, talk about the trust, but the Attorney General should bring a lawsuit against Oklahoma County Trust. There should be some.
Well, Keith, that ain't gonna happen because he's a Republican.
But I'm saying they should, because something's got to give, guys. Something's got to give. You can't keep having this many people. And Pastor, I will tell you in Virgil, y'all know this. Budgets are based on revenue, the base your budget based on what you received last year. I mean, some people do that, you know.
Yeah.
So they project last year.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City, just hypothetically, Oklahoma City brought in 1,000 people to the jail. Well, then there's going to be a study that thinking, well, maybe based on population increase and things like that, they're going to bring 1,100 people in. Well, that's going to be more revenue, and so we can hopefully budget or plan to hire this or do this. And so, are they putting the money back into jail? Because I'm telling you, between every department in Oklahoma County, I guarantee they're getting $1 million. I guarantee you, Oklahoma City. I guarantee you, because when I was in Norman, my budget in Norman for the jail was almost $300,000. Now I can only imagine what Oklahoma City's budget is for Oklahoma County Jail. Millions of dollars.
Yeah, because they're the largest agency in Oklahoma County.
They're the largest agency in the state.
Yeah, well, yeah. But when it comes to they arrest more people that are put in Oklahoma County Jail. Now, I'll say this, and the one thing that has happened is that the voters approved to build a new jail. Well, guess what? Now your property tax is going to go up. Now, so every time the county settles a lawsuit from one of these deaths that have occurred, who is the ones that's going to be on financially going to have to pay for that? The taxpayer, the taxpayers of Oklahoma County. And as we have this conversation, there is always a handful of people, Pastor, and you've seen this. You've been engaged with it for years. You only have a handful of people involved with something.
Yeah.
We may have a handful of people or more watching our podcast tonight about it. But I guarantee you, if so, people don't prioritize things. And if you prioritize things, let's just go back to what happened with George Floyd. Protests happened in every city across the United States, even in Oklahoma City, which it had never happened before. So was it just because this was happening in other cities and people in Oklahoma City said, hey, we need to jump on the bandwagon and be a part of it? When you utilize your voice, you need to make sure things happen to bring about change. And that has not happened in over 20 something years in Oklahoma County.
Well, it's the same thing you see. If it doesn't affect me, then I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
If I haven't had a problem, I'm not going to worry about it. You don't have very many Sarah Banners and very many Jesse Jacksons. You just don't have those individuals that'll stand up. They see something that they think they believe is wrong, and they stand up for it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it goes back to the fact I truly believe there's a lack of humanization. It's dehumanizing individuals, because there is a certain segment of the community that believes that the individuals in jail don't need any better. And it's like you said previously, man, I'm a dog owner. And I've adopted almost every dog that we've ever had has come from a shelter. But I go back and I look at what happened in Norman. When you vote, you pass a sales tax to build a $4 million animal shelter.
Wow.
$4 million animal shelter. Although the city of Norman had no say so over the jail as far as. And keep in mind, Pastor and Virgil, Cleveland County built a new jail.
They did.
They built a new
and
jail.
they have not had a death. I think I don't believe they may have had one death in the jail, but I think it was medically related.
Well, I do know maybe 2 or 3, but I will say this: it's run more effectively because they do look at liability, and so
they look at the people that they hire too.
You got to hire. You have to hire people who are passionate about being jail detention officers. You can't hire a person solely because they need a job. And I'm all about people making a living, but when you hire people just because they need a job, especially when you caregivers,
yeah,
that in itself, I mean, the thing that detention officers go through, correction officers go through, they have to want to do that job. And so when you start hiring people that really they just there for a job, there's a problem.
Yeah. And the training is also there, Chief.
Yeah.
The training has to be there. I mean, you can't just hire folk off the street and just turn them loose.
Yeah, exactly.
And which is what happens. So a lot of it is administrative, and you said it exactly right. It's just caring, and the people that are in charge are callous. And I'm afraid, and I'll just jump out and say this: the bigger supporters of our share are people that are callous, and I think that some of that is what prevents him from speaking out, because his supporters would not like it. And I think that's one of the reasons he doesn't speak. I mean, you have to say something. You have to be inhuman not to say something about all these people that are dying in Oklahoma County Jail. Well, and you don't hear Pete.
I will say this. I know him. He's bought and paid for, man.
Yeah.
He's bought and paid for. He is bought and paid for, and you're not going to see that because never mind, but he's bought and paid for.
Yeah. Hey guys, we're coming up on the last few seconds of the podcast show, and Pastor Jackson, it's been great. We're going to need to get you back on and talk about this, and hopefully get some other people back on with you as well, Sarah Banner or even Chris Cummings and some other people, because I think it's just something. It's a very important topic that we need to talk about, and hopefully, there's been some pressure put on some people, but not enough pressure for it to stop on a dime and change to where there shouldn't be any more deaths in Oklahoma County Jail. As of this year, there's 14 people. And last year there were many more people died in the jail. So, and again, I want to say this to the listeners before we end the podcast. Oklahoma County Jail is the second highest mortality jail in the United States. West Virginia is number 1, and Oklahoma County Detention Center is number 2. That should be a reason. The DOJ is involved with some things, but I think if the DOJ just came in and just took over the whole jail operation and said, Jail Trust, you guys go sit over here. We need just the same way, Keith, as you know, when consent decrees happen, there needs to be some serious action taken to stop just one death from happening at the Oklahoma County Detention Center.
Well, I agree with you, but I think we need to try to get Sheriff Johnson on. I think Johnson and Mike Norris on together.
Yeah, well, I don't think.
I think I'd love to get them on.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. But
well, I thank you brothers for having the wisdom to talk about this and to say things out loud over the air that too many people are just whispering right now.
They are whispering, so, and they don't want to say it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, and I want to let everybody know, if you miss any parts of this podcast, you can check us out on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Spotify, Anchor Podcasts, and many other podcasts. And Keith, what's the podcast? What we were just added to Amazon Music Podcast. So everybody, you can check us out and subscribe to us on Amazon Music Podcast. So next week, we're going to have on another guest, and he's going to be talking about finance. He's going to be talking about credit. And so we all want to make sure we got a 800 or 900 credit score. So tune in next week for another episode of You and the Law podcast. Pastor Jackson, thank you.
God bless you, fellas.
All right.
All right.